All right. Do I have a motion to return to open session?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Ms. Woods, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
5 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to certify closed session that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempt from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Ms. Woods, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond? Ms. Franklin? Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
5 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion for additional legal representation by Eisler Dare, PC?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Woods, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond? Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
5 in favor.
Motion carries. All right, as we begin our meeting, we do want to pause today for a moment of silence in remembrance of Nevaeh Booker. She was a child who was loved and whose life was cut tragically short. Our thoughts are with her family and all of the people who knew her. Thank you. As we begin tonight's meeting, I ask those in the audience to please silence your cell phones. Cell phone notifications can be distracting to others in the audience and to the board as we conduct our business. Thank you. Our school representatives this evening are Mercurius Yasa from Christiansburg High School and Jenna Gadd from Eastern Montgomery High School. Will you all read the mission, vision, and core values statements, please?
Mission. MCPS is an innovative educational community. We value diversity and we are committed to equity and inclusion. MCPS empowers learners to realize success in an ever-changing global society through collaboration with communities, families, staff, and students. MCPS provides a safe, engaging learning environment and intentional exposure to positive social, emotional, and academic experiences.
Beliefs. All students can learn in order to pursue their dreams. Schools are safe places of joy, wonder, and creativity. Every person deserves to be loved, valued, and respected. Kindness is an essential skill of a responsible, productive community leader. The diversity of our community is one of our greatest strengths. All people deserve equitable access to opportunities and resources. Every child deserves an advocate. Honoring the voices of students and other stakeholders strengthens the school community. Open communication and feedback are vital to our growth. Learning and teaching are collective efforts that begin at birth and involve the entire community. And finally, relationship building and high expectations are foundational to student success.
Thank you all. Our next agenda item is public address. We welcome the opportunity to hear from students, parents, employees, and community members about education matters in this community. As a reminder, the board sets aside 30 minutes to start our public address. We have the option to extend in 30-minute increments, which Ms. Woods will remind us of. If there are additional speakers after 90 minutes, the board will continue with their business meeting and hold one additional 30-minute session at the end of the business meeting. The clock continues through applause and disruptions, so the more disruptions there are, the fewer speakers who get to address the board. I will call each speaker up by name in the order they signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. The board does not respond to speakers during public address. The screen will show when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and when time is up. Please state your name and the area of the county where you live. Our first speakers are Madison Morris and Griffin Warren. Oh, okay.
They both let us know that they weren't going to make it tonight.
Okay. So I guess the next speaker is Griffin Warren? No? Sorry, I don't have it in front of me. Oh, we've got Bob Beard and then Glenn Chilcote. No Bob? All right, Glenn.
Chair Chewbacca, and members of the board. My name is Glenn Chilcote. I live in Blacksburg, and I'm here to talk about collective bargaining. Just kidding. Here to talk about the calendar. There are several things that I would like you all just to be aware of. First, as far as I know, the calendar was already approved, and many individuals, employees, and families have already made major plans based on it. Many employees have expressed to me that since the calendar was already approved, or at least we thought it was, items like weddings, maternity leaves, and trips to visit family were already set based on that calendar. But now that may need to change if you change that this evening. Now, I have spoken with Dr. Bregan, and I share his desire to have more student learning days, absolutely. Now, when it comes to work days, I want to emphasize that these are not days off. Employees have lots of things to do and very little time to do it. For example, this year we had 9 total work days from the first day of school until the last day of school. 5 of those 9 work days were meetings in PD. 4 were reserved for being in the classroom and collaboratively planning and doing things that we need to get done on a very long to-do list. So if you approve a new calendar, please advise the administration to not add additional meetings so we can utilize the workdays for collaborative planning and increasing student learning outcomes. The new calendar, as far as I can tell, has 6 workdays. So if you choose that, please make sure that 4 out of the 6 are left so teachers can be in the classroom. And when we're thinking about where we add student days, I do think that we need to be mindful about where we place them. So to me, it's most logical to have these days before exams and SOLs. That just seems logical to me, not after. So that's just something I want you to be aware of. And lastly, this might not have bearings on the calendar, but it kind of does. So I can't quote the Code of Virginia on this, but I know that if teachers start working, or if students start before the 15th of August, you must pay teachers in August. And I think that's a good thing, to be honest, because I remember when I was a new teacher, I didn't get my first paycheck until October. So I started in August and was not paid until October. That was challenging, so that's also just something to think about. Now, calendar aside, the MCEA has formally submitted our request for a certification election. The 45-day window is now open, and we are ready to move forward, and we look forward to finalizing the details as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chilcombe. All right, our public address is closed, and we'll move on to consent items. If no one wishes to pull an item from the consent agenda, all items are approved on consent. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the payment of the bills as presented?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, Ms. Woods, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson? Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes,
5 in favor.
motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve the financial summary report as presented?
Doesn't look like we have one.
I'm sorry?
It doesn't look like we have one.
Oh, sorry, okay. Yep, I guess it's not on there anymore. All right then, we'll move on to the business meeting, and we'll start with the report from the superintendent. So, Dr. Bregan, it's all yours.
Thank you, Board Chair Chewbacca. First, I want to just recognize Governor Youngkin has made April School Library Month and made a formal recognition, and I want to compliment all of our librarians and all the work they do in creating those learning spaces for our students. You know, one of the things that I bring to the table that maybe not everyone else does is coming from another place that didn't value libraries as much as we do here. It's great to see the spaces that we have, the materials that we have in those dedicated free kind of learning spaces where children are allowed to have some degree of free choice in selecting what they read, and the commitment of our people that work in those places. And at the elementary schools, it's part of the learning day and the preparation periods for our teachers. And at the secondary, it's more of a resource for our classes and instruction. We should be really proud of our libraries and our library spaces because not everybody has those dedicated areas. And kudos to the governor for recognizing it as Library Month in April, and kudos to this board, former boards, and our librarians who have dedicated made sure that was something, dedicated funds and resources to make sure that that comes to fruition. So I'm very proud of it, and as should we all be in the district. The next thing I want to report on is our Board of Supervisors met for the county last night, and I attended that meeting. I'm a little disturbed by what I heard and distressed. Again, I'm not used to the funding practices and policies the way we do this here, but this school board put forth a budget that they approved that was requesting $6.1 million increase that we think is needed in order to fund our current programs and add to those areas where we need resources. When the Board of Supervisors developed their budget that they put out a few months ago actually, the initial phase, it contained $4 million increase for our school funding. So that was already down $2.1 million, and that was going out at an advertised rate of 73 cents on the $100 for the new rates, the new assessments. At last night's meeting, the push was to move towards 70 cents, which would be a zero impact tax raise. And on items on the table for discussion were some things that we were very passionate about as the school board. One was the $600,000 that we dedicated to increasing the pay of our support staff. One was $715,000 for the 11 staff member increases that we needed, including athletic directors, as well as $250,000 to move forward and put it onto our funding some of the ESSER funded positions in the future. So that's $1.5 million or something thereabouts. So factor in the calculation error, which is $1.26 million that was done at the state level. That 6.1 ask now comes down to a little over $1 million. I'm really concerned if that's where we go. The final decision or vote has not been taken by the Board of Supervisors, but I did get the impression last night that the majority is in favor of that. And I'm just sharing with y'all if there's anything we can do for that. It's concerning to me. And everybody tells me, hey, not to worry, it'll work itself out. Don't, Bernie, you know, this is how it goes here in Virginia. I'm concerned because $5 million means one thing. That's less people that we can employ to work here. You can't make up $5 million in savings in other areas. And I just wanted to share with you. I wish I had good news, but that's what I got at the board meeting last night. And lastly, I'd like to say something on a personal level. Recently, I took some actions that I regret and do not really represent my intentions. I want to publicly say that I truly love working here in Montgomery County Public Schools, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I enjoy it, and I plan to stay here. I plan to honor the obligations of my contract, and I wanted to go out in public and say that to everybody. Thank you, Board Chair.
So when is the public hearing on their
I had the public discussion was last Thursday, I believe. I believe they're voting next Monday,
This coming Monday?
I believe. I'll check the calendar to make sure, but they had the hearing where the people asked, the public came and expressed concerns. That was last Thursday. Last night was what I believe they entitled a work session, where they worked through with, each other, and they asked us as a school, myself and Ms. Miano were there to answer some of the questions they had about our budget, and they had a list of items that they were considering to reduce, and those three items were from the school board that I spoke of.
All right, thanks, Dr. Bregan. Anyone else? All right, next on the agenda, the Perkins Grant application. I think we had a first reading on that last time, so does anyone wish to make a motion regarding the Perkins Grant application?
I motion to approve the Perkins Grant application as presented.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I think it's wonderful, appreciate it. Ms. Woods, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond? Yes. Ms. Franklin? Yes. Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
5 in favor.
Motion carries. So math and science electives textbook adoption. This is the first review of the textbooks today. So there's no action, and they'll be on the agenda for the May 2nd meeting. I'm assuming what's in board docs is what's being presented. I'm Okay. Does anybody have questions about anything?
Okay, so who was involved in the selection? How many meetings did we have about it? Was it thoroughly explained?
So Ms. Wall and Mr. Tobler, they're here this evening. These are math and science elective textbooks. So I'm going to ask them to come up and talk to you about the process and answer your questions about who was involved.
Good evening. For the statistics, probability and statistics elective, all of the teachers were able to join us for that discussion. For the trigonometry, we had a representative from each school, but we also shared the information with all of the trigonometry teachers, both all of the textbooks that we reviewed, and then when we narrowed it to 2 finalists, we shared that out again with a form for them to offer feedback, and they could also share that with their building representative. So those are the meetings that we had for the math side.
For the environmental science textbook, there's currently only 2 teachers in the county that are teaching environmental science. It's only being taught at Christiansburg High School and Eastern Montgomery High School. It will be in all 4 high schools, I believe, next year. I was able to get confirmed teacher for Auburn High School involved. At the time, we didn't have, and who was going to be teaching it at Blacksburg. So it was 3 teachers and me, and we went through 5 different textbooks, comparing them to the state guidelines for environmental science. There are no SOLs for environmental science. And we selected the book that met all the criteria, met all the guidelines, as well as had the very best hands-on student doing science activities in it.
What about, because obviously we've had some issues, I guess, surrounding curriculum adoption lately. And one of the complaints that I've heard is that, these things are made available, but they're not like necessarily pushed out to, especially to parents. But the process you described, at least on the statistics, I guess, textbook, it was being pushed out to teachers, right, to staff along the way. Do we do the same thing with parents? Do we?
We do. We share that information on the website, and then I believe the Montgomery County website pushes it to all of the school websites as well. And so there were forms available for parents to complete, or they could come to the school board office and review copies here.
I guess what I mean by that is when it's one thing to push it out onto the website, right? It's another thing to tell parents, hey, we're going to adopt new textbooks for science. We're going to adopt new textbooks for math or whatever. Here's where they are. If anybody's interested, please go look at it. And I think that's been kind of the complaint that I've heard the most from parents. So I'm assuming that was not done in this case. Is that something, I don't know if that requires, is that something that's going to require a policy change, or is that something that is just the way that is an internal process that we need to maybe change?
In the past, when I was a parent, they would come across in the good old-fashioned newsletter, paper newsletter that would be sent out from I know, I'm dating
But
myself.
that's fine.
And they would list those, because I remember coming either here or to the older site to look at textbooks when that was happening. I guess the question would be, is it, pushed out via peach jar so that parents have that information?
We have not been doing that previously, so this time it went through the website, and then from the website to the school websites.
So I guess I'll go back to my original question then. Is that something that we need to change from a policy point of view, or is that just something that we need to change in our practices?
I don't think it has to be a policy. It's something we want to do is put in place as one of our protocols and practices when we adopt stuff. We could do that. I think it's a further discussion, right? If that's what we want to do moving forward, let's iron it out, and we could do that.
Anyone else?
You were hitting on what I was going to say, was that we need to get a written policy or procedures or whatever to say when we roll out textbooks, this is how we do it. So that we're consistent and everybody knows this is how we do it.
One of the documents that you'll find that's in there is the process that we follow now for all textbook adoptions. And what we'll do, we'll go in and add that piece about changing the communication to our parents, not just on the website, but other ways to make sure that we're pushing that out.
And not only to our parents, but we have folks in the community that we need to make sure that this is put out so they know this is the process we're going through.
So on these math and science textbooks, are these, I couldn't tell from the stuff that was put on here, as far as digital copies or other digital resources, what are these paper textbooks that have a digital component? Are these purely paper textbooks? Can you walk us through any of that?
So that they can be either or both, and I think the plan is to have most of them as digital, but also have paper textbooks available at each of the schools, but not for every student.
And when I see like workbooks in here, are those online things where students fill things out digitally, or are they actually, physical workbooks?
They would be online resources. There are hard copies of the textbook, and then all of the student platforms where they might do interactive homework assignments, videos, those kinds of things would be online.
All right. Anyone else? All right, thank you. All right, so special education annual plan. This is the first review of the Spec Ed annual plan. No action tonight, but it'll also be on the agenda for May 2nd. And Dr. Walker is here to answer questions and
programs and services will remain the same as this school year, so there are no changes with programming. So I'll be presenting tonight, which is mainly updates with allocation amounts. The 23-24 grant allocation funding amounts have not been released as of this time, but that will come. Usually July will get a certain amount, and then October will get the final amount. So we base this year's on last year's amount. This, again, is developed based off of two funding streams, funding stream 611, K through 12 only, and that's $2,347,949. And funding stream 619 is that preschool smaller grant of $58,476. Here's a pictorial of what I was discussing. And as you can see, we have the 2 years. The 2023 school year, you have that amount. That was based off of the December 1 child count of 2021 with a census of 1,200 students with IEPs. Next school year, it's based off the December 1st, 2022 with a census of 1,244 students with IEPs. So there is an increase of 44 students. So we do anticipate that the final grant, the amount award will be more than what's on the screen here, because it's based on the increased amounts of 44 additional students. Funding stream 611, again, that's at K through 12, and that breakdown is $2,138,708.81 for staffing positions, 23 special education teaching positions, a music therapist position, 40 special education instructional assistant positions, and those include part-time and hourly, $111,000 for contracted services, which we've had an increase this school year of, speech, OT, PT, vision services, autism consultants, CPI training for the entire school division, AT services, and professional development for the initiative that we started last school year with the instructional assistants in the Registered Behavior Technician initiative. $68,153.71 is for the proportionate set aside for 28 parentally placed students within the school division, and That is, the formula is based on the number of students, and the formula derives that $68,000, 153 and 71 cents amount. That is for evaluations, for child find. It could be services for speech services and for consultative services. $30,000 and change is for the maintenance of reading and math supplemental materials and for the initiatives that were implemented last school year. And finally, we have the funding stream 611, that preschool smaller grant. It's for $53,628.75 supporting two special educational instructional assistants and a little over $4,000 for materials and supplies for the preschool curriculum, and also materials for preschool teachers to implement social skills and students with disabilities. That's the update for these 2023-24 Special Education Annual Application Grant Award. Are there any questions?
I just want to make one comment. I didn't realize we had a music therapist.
Yes, we do.
And I was visiting schools and saw this person in action. Oh, my gosh. Made my heart so happy. The kids were loving it, and I'm so glad that we offer that.
Yeah, there are several school divisions that do not offer that service
know.
as a service for students.
Any other questions, board? I have one on the overall funding. I know you said that with the increased child count that you would expect to receive more money than what the estimate is, but I guess is that estimate, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, I mean, the cost of everything goes up, so even if the amount of money we get goes up with the number of kids that we get, is it possible that we still kind of take an effective cut until?
No. We'll, it's based off the number of the census of students with IEPs in each school division. There's a certain dollar amount assigned to that.
Per
and
student?
so that will go up. As students increase, that dollar amount will increase for the school division.
So it's per student then?
It's per student.
Okay.
Yes.
Does that number, does the per student cost or amount change from year to year?
That number is pretty constant with the department. And so that's why it's student specific. So they have that number set. And so as students increase, you'll see those dollar amounts increase as well.
So I have a question. So it says funding for 40 spec ed educational instructional assistant positions. So are these some of the folks that we see in our staffing update that we still need folks to fill those?
These, yes, and also they consist of individuals in our on-campus training program as well. On the on-campus training program, there are several students that consist of an 8-hour position. These are tech students, and so they can only work a certain amount of hours based on their schedules. So when we do the interviews and hire them, one staff can work 3 hours. So one can work 4 hours, one can work 2 hours, based on their schedule to cover the students in those on-campus training programs. So that's why you see the number of 40 seems a little high, but that's because it's 40, we consider them a position, but there are 40 of those encompassed within that dollar amount. And so it can consist of both inside and on-campus instructional assistants.
So it's I'll address it under another area, but thank you.
All right. All right, next on the agenda is whistleblower protection policy. And I see Mr. Knott coming up.
So I shared with you the policy that I worked on with our attorneys, and they explained some information to me about the whistleblower policy that I wasn't really aware of, and I want to help with that tonight with you guys. The federal protection that the whistleblower policy provides us is really based around federal, state, and local funding. So whistleblower applies really to a funding aspect of our school. So if anybody is committing fraud, if they're committing abuse of spending, if they're committing a waste of the funding that we have, then this protects one of our employees or someone from the public from bringing forth a complaint. It protects them against legal backlash and retaliation. There is nothing in the federal protection policy that outlines any kind of procedure for reporting this, other than to go to the OSHA website, fill out the complaint form, and file that complaint. There is no requirement for a school division to actually have a whistleblower policy. And in fact, looking around the state, there's a handful of school divisions that have that. We modeled our policy after the policy in Fairfax because working with our attorneys, they felt like it was a good policy for us to have with so few of them out there. So the policy presented tonight was vetted by our attorneys, and the flip side of that with the whistleblower, I think from what we were trying to get to was if anyone was causing abusive conduct, a hostile work environment, abusive work environment, and that. And also, I'm sorry, I left out physical harm or psychological harm. And policy 5-1.8 that we already have covers that as well. But it's more of a state policy than a federal policy like the whistleblower policy. So our attorneys didn't feel like we should combine the two policies together because of the differences in them. One being more about the work environment and one being more about the funding sources and resources that we have that could be misused. This one from the state, the abusive work environment prohibited policy is required by the state for us to have, and that's why we have the one we have. The other piece that our attorneys shared with us is that in that policy or that requirement from the state, there's also no reporting requirement or no reporting guidance on how people should report that. Currently, our complaint report from our sexual harassment Title IX policy covers all of our reporting for any kind of abuse, hostile work environment, abusive conduct, or any of those kinds of acts that an employee in the division may feel they've been subjected to. They've vetted both policies, and we certainly can take any recommendations you have back and do some additional work if there's something you would like to see different. Correct.
Turned it off, sorry.
There you go. That's okay.
So I think that it's, just so everybody understands, the policy 5-1.7 is a new proposed policy that's being brought forward. But it's very narrow to, fraud and abuse that's financial. And I know Sue had brought this up, I think probably not necessarily thinking just financial things. So I think at some point we need to think about and look at ways that we can, I think the idea is that you don't want to create, not just, and the other policy, 5-1.8, kind of talks about an abusive work environment. And I think that there's still kind of a wide category of stuff that's outside of abuse, that is outside of financial things, that can still be concerning. Yeah, thank you. And so I guess maybe the question to the board is, how do we want to, and even to the staff, what can we do that? I mean, do we need a different policy? Do we need to take one of our existing policies and strengthen it?
Do you see what he's asking, Mr. Knott? Here, let me give you an example without naming any names or circumstances. That's going to be a little challenging.
Good luck.
So, several years ago, we had an instance at a school where students had been continually told that a certain subject area was okay, and, bad things really never happen to anyone in that historical time frame. And we later found out about that later on, after the employee was no longer with us. And I feel like if teachers had a way to be empowered when they observe or see something like that happening, that might not have continued for as long as it did. I guess that's sort of what I was talking about. I think that might be where Sue was coming from.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll use a very specific example. Annie was up here just a couple months ago telling us about how the previous administration, when they were running the construction project for Christiansburg High School, I mean, we had project managers that, were paying to do a certain job that were basically told, here's the way it's going to be, don't say anything. Now, that didn't fall under maybe abusive, maybe it was questionable on how, was it potentially wasteful monetarily? Yeah. Could somebody look at it and say, well, this isn't really fraud? Yeah, they could also. But we had no way for those people to let us know
Anonymously,
anonymously or
right.
safely, because they were being threatened with their own jobs. And this happens, I mean, I feel like I've heard stories like this for the last 4 or 6 years, kind of all over the county. And so and it's a problem. And I think that this board is concerned about this problem. This board wants to change that. And that's why I think Sue brought this up. So this is something that, and this is a great first step, but, and we may not figure it all out tonight or even with just these two policies, but, how do we make policy that protects people to share when things are sketchy or unethical? But
I
maybe
know
not
we have
illegal.
I know we have that form, and Mr. Garrison could probably talk to this since it's in that area, that, staff can fill out for it to be investigated. The concern with that is, I would be afraid as an employee to submit that form because you're gonna have my email. And then secondly, when you go to investigate it, it's usually pretty obvious where it came from when you start the investigation part. And I know that you first have to talk to that employee that submitted it. Okay, so I realize that. We would want to make that so incredibly safe and not compromise them in any way, yet still work at solving what is happening.
One of the things with the proposed fraud abuse policy is that we would create an anonymous hotline. We're working with Doug to determine whether it's a separate number or if it goes to a certain voicemail that we can then pick up on and listen to somehow, some way, have an anonymous way for people to report. Not only our employees, but also for outside constituents to report if they feel there's fraud, abuse, or waste. So that's part of the new policy that is being proposed. That's something that we could potentially expand beyond that policy. Again, if there is an investigation that needs to take place, you have to talk to all parties. And so trying to create the culture that it's okay to raise concern is going to be part of the challenge with all of this.
challenge. And if we do that hotline piece, then I feel like that we need to change the name of that policy so that it does encompass, because it's not fraud and it's not abuse.
So certainly we can do that because, like I said, we're not required to have the whistleblower policy as a school division.
Sure.
So we make it what
We could make it whatever we want to
Right.
make it.
Right.
So when I brought this up during our retreat, that we needed to talk about this, for me, and it's me, I don't care who knows, because I'm going to say it, right? But for a lot of folks, it's the retaliation piece. And helping folks understand that you are protected against that and what you need to be looking for. Because sometimes you're retaliated against and you don't even realize what's going on. I think we need to make this very visible so that folks understand this is here. This is how you use it. If you don't know how to use it, some kind of,
FAQ.
yeah,
FAQ.
or even a pamphlet or something that folks can pick up or whatever and understand what their protections are, how they need to report it. Because like Mark said, it's like this, we need to make it like this. So, and don't be afraid, even if it turns out that what you're reporting is not at the level that you may believe it is, you still need to say something, right? But if we don't put it out there, if we keep it on the website where people don't understand this is here for me to try to feel better about myself and what's going on in this district, then they won't use it. We need to make it very, very visible.
Continuously.
Yeah.
And just so you guys know, Amanda and I do talk to lots of employees, weekly about these kinds of things. So when they reach out to us, we let them know what their rights are and encourage them to do what they think is best for them.
I agree with everything that's been said. I do want to say, in terms of the specific policy that you brought to us with 5-1.7, I do appreciate the work there. I mean, that was a lot of work you did there. If you look at our current 5.1.7, it doesn't say a heck of a whole lot of anything, right? So,
It says nothing.
so thank you.
No worries.
Great job on that one. Let's put that same level of effort into whether we want to update 5.1.8 or something new, but because I agree with all the comments we talked about. I guess we could still vote on 5.1.7 tonight, but still move forward on additional things.
This is just the first reading.
Yeah.
Roger that.
Yeah.
You're right. My bad.
Yeah, and I agree that we should move forward with 5-1-7 or.
There's a lot of work put in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's good, and we should move forward with that, but, and I've made the mistake twice now. But I really appreciate that, so Penny brought this up, I guess, and she just reminded me that it was at the retreat last time, and I think that was towards the end, though, wasn't it, about things to talk about in the future, I think? So I'm wondering if we shouldn't, if we don't have this resolved by the time we do our next retreat, I do think that this might be a good retreat topic, too, because I do think that there are some, like, pros and cons to do. You make things too easy, and then you could be mired in, petty stuff forever, right? But how do we, and who is it that needs to see some of this stuff, right? I mean, I don't know. I think there's probably some longer conversations that need to happen along this stuff, but.
I'll just say what might be petty to me is a reality for someone else.
Agreed. How do you capture the things that are important?
I think you investigate it.
With,
Find out
yeah, and then, I mean,
from all sides.
Sure. It's just for me, that can also go to another extreme in another direction. I'm not saying that it will. Like, using the example that I used, for example, when you had multiple people who, were being told kind of the same thing and essentially threatened with, losing their job, that's something that we need to know.
think you,
Or somebody above, somebody in the command chain needs to know that.
I think you alter your policy as you go, as far as what you get back and whether it's, needs to be more defined or not. I don't think we can make that judgment now when we've not really even done it really yet.
I get your point, though. I mean, I know that at one of the schools that my kids were in, they stood up some type of, I don't know what it was. It was like a bullying email thing or something. I forget what it was. And it got spammed by students just messing around, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anytime you have anything that's that public, you're going to get some stuff that you're going to have to wade through. But, I mean, I do think that you got to do that. Otherwise, you miss the important stuff.
So the direction I'm hearing is that we'll bring back 5-1.7 for the next meeting for a vote, and that you would like to beef up the 5-1.8 abusive work environment, or, excuse me, abusive work environment prohibited policy to include its own complaint form. And do you want to include in there making it visible, or just create the practice of making it
Create the
visible?
practice of making it visible. Much like we just talked about with the textbook adoption.
Would we need to rename that?
I think we would when we
Okay,
get to that
when we get
point.
to it, okay. So you have the,
I'll work with make sure that we, what the name needs to be from our attorneys, and I'll report back to you on that.
I mean, it's a pretty good start. When you look at it, it's got abusive conduct, abusive work environment, physical harm, psychological harm. I mean, it kind of breaks out in paragraphs. So there could be a section for abusive environment, but then I think if I'm hearing all of us correctly, that maybe there's other parts of the work environment that could be negative that aren't necessarily abusive, but maybe something different.
Yeah, we'll let you guys bring that to us.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Danny. This is important.
Thank you.
All right, next topic, funding for athletics.
Good, thanks, Mark. Beginning with this school year, 22-23, funds were put aside when we did that budget realignment for the items mentioned below. Previous to this year, there were no budget amounts for the athletic expenses by a line item, except for the coaching stipends and transportation. We left that one off. Each school has now provided funds for these items below, and if the school exceeds the amount budgeted, the additional expenses are paid for by the school. You can see the amounts there, the stipends for coaches, we've all had that in there. And these totals are obviously for all schools combined. The professional services and security amount of $20,000 is divided up each school differently depending on their activities. And then we have the officials of $176,000. Transportation and uniforms and equipment is given each year for their discretion on how to use that amount. The district also pays approximately $14,000 in VHSL dues each year. That fluctuates a little bit each year depending on what the schools are involved in. And then we have in the budget $40,000 for athletic trainers each year. And as you all have talked about, next school year we've requested or proposed the $280,000. Field maintenance is a little different. There is no standard procedure for funding the maintenance of school athletic facilities and grounds. Over the last several years, we spent approximately $12,500 on each things like the turfus and the paint and infield mix, light bulb seeds, different items like that. But it's kind of on a first ask basis as the maintenance department gets the request and they have the funds available, they'll take care of what they can, which has resulted in the confusion of how we pay for the maintenance for each school and athletic facilities and grounds. I will add that some schools ask for help cutting the grass. Others will take care of it themselves just out of a personal preference, but the maintenance department is there to do that. Needs not funded by the maintenance department have been met in various ways to include things like student activity funds, donations, and booster clubs. Next steps, we feel, is a comprehensive master facility plan should be completed this summer and will include recommendations for ongoing field maintenance. Items that we need to be considered are replacement or upgrades to existing fields, tracks, and courts, ongoing turf management for grass and artificial fields, which are different, lights, scoreboards, sound systems, any other permanent fixed equipment. Facility use by outside organizations is also to be included in there, and any other recommendations we get from athletic directors or others. Quick, but any questions?
A little concerned about the first come, first serve process. And no, we got to do better than that.
Yep. So we will do better, and that process really has phased itself out. There was a practice of buying in bulk to save money, but then it was all at the warehouse. And so then if you had larger facility and larger needs in each season, then you requested it and you got it. And then we stopped purchasing it because it wasn't an equitable way to do things, and then we ran out of each of those items in the fall semester. So as we look towards budgeting into future years, we'll have a different system.
So future years, we're talking next year?
Yes.
Guess I was going to ask a similar question in terms of, on your first slide there, just about the funding in general, like how is that allocated across all the schools?
So the stipends for coaches is based on what sports that they have, what sports they're offering, where the student demand is. Professional services and security and officials, we were able to sit down with the athletic directors and look at that as a whole county budget and come up with a budget that we felt like would meet the vast majority of every school's needs. And all of the athletic directors came to a consensus on that. So Blacksburg High School and Christiansburg High School have more events, they need more officials, they need more security, their budgets were larger. But we felt when we put those budgets together that we were going to come really close to covering everybody's expenses for the years. Of course, that's difficult to predict in August and September, but everybody felt good about it at that time. Transportation is done by a formula that's been in place for quite a while, and that is a complicated formula between like athletics, but then it's also a similar formula that's based on school field trips, and so that kind of follows a county-wide all programs formula. Uniforms and equipment is $5,000 per high school and $2,500 for each middle school.
I see. So these numbers that you have here are countywide numbers? Correct. And then they're, okay, all right.
Okay, so is this pertaining to my questions from a couple weeks? Because this is nothing like what I was asking for. Nothing. I mean, it's a blanket, and I appreciate that.
Sure.
But this is just, okay, this is what we do.
Right.
This doesn't fix the problem that I was talking about the fact that these fields are being used and they're being rented, but the fields and the schools don't get the money. So how do we fix that? Because it needs to be fixed.
Right, agreed. And Dr. Whitaker made sure to make that point to us last week when we were preparing for this, that's really being done through an outside. We've got two different groups that are now meeting, and the athletic directors and the principals are involved in both groups. We've got that one that was mentioned on the last slide. Then we've also got a committee that has been put together to look at outside groups that are renting and the price that they're paying, because there has not been a consistent or equitable practice of who pays for what, when, and where. And that's something that we're going to come together as a committee. And first we need to identify what's being done, who's using the facility, and we've already identified groups that are using it, and maybe they've given back in different ways, but they haven't consistently paid one rate, or maybe the rate has changed at some point over the past 5 years. They might have paid 2 or 3 different rates. So the direct answer is that Dr. Whitaker's put together a committee, and we recognize that definitely your questions were that there were some inconsistencies, and we've confirmed that just in looking at this data, and we're going to move forward with a committee approach to get more standardized answers for each of the schools and
I
our
don't
outside
even think
groups.
that it's not about inconsistency. That's not my concern. I mean, I am concerned about that it happens. My concern is still the fact that, and I hear what you're saying, yeah, you got to look further into it, but there's still got to be some kind of process that's set up for when this money comes in, that the fields are being rented. It's got to already be in place. It has to be. Then who's getting the money? Somebody's got to be getting the money.
I could speak to that, Ms. Bond. One of the
Okay.
things Dr. Whitaker and I found out is, she took over the financial aspect of operations over this year was there wasn't a standardized process that was taking place. Monies are being given for the field rentals, but it isn't consistent, not consistently applied. So that's one of the first things that, under her direction, they did try to implement and make sure, hey, if you're using the Christiansburg softball field, baseball field, whatever, you're paying the $100 per use, whatever it is, and everyone's paying consistently. What I heard from your question, and this doesn't answer your question. So we had talked with the board chair and vice chair and said, we want to put together at least something for this meeting. We don't have the answer for that. But what I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, is if Christiansburg High School baseball field, for instance, is rented every weekend 3 times, a day, and it's being grossly worn down, right, through use, is what we want our kids to use the fields. Are the monies for the rentals going to then be re-put back into that field? That makes total sense to me, and that's what we should make sure we're doing. I'm not sure that's taking place moving forward, but we want to make sure that we have that in place across the division so it's consistent. So if it's Christiansburg or Auburn High School and the fields are being overly utilized by outside people, which we want them to do, we want to make sure we dedicate the funds that we're charging
There you go.
in order to fix them. And if we're not charging enough, we will come to you and say we need to charge more.
Right.
Because they are community fields, but our kids come first for the school division. That's what I think you said. We don't have that
exactly what I
answer yet.
That's right.
Okay.
So the
We will
fact-
get that.
Right.
But we will get you that answer, and we want to put those practices in place. That seems logical to me.
That's what the committee's gonna get started. Like, who all uses it? How often does it get used?
Right, and I get you,
Yes.
but to me, it's not even about who uses it. It's just, okay, if you've got the Christiansburg Bumblebees using Christiansburg baseball field, and they rented it for $50, and the $50 goes into this account, and it's earmarked that it used Christiansburg baseball field, so that $50 goes back into Christiansburg baseball somehow. And understand it's not what's happening. But we need to find a way for it to happen. Or whether it's Blacksburg, whether it's Auburn, whether it's Eastern Montgomery. It could be Eastern Montgomery tennis courts. It's the same thing. Say we've got a Shawsville tennis senior program, and they're using the courts all the time. But yet that money that's being rented for them is not ever seeing those courts. That's what's happening. It may be going into this generalized fund, and then that's filtered back through generalized, but that's not fair. It's not right. It needs to go back in, because it might not be that any of these other fields are getting used the same way and need the extra help. So I know you hear what I'm saying, but just that's kind of what I'm looking for.
Well, to me, Jamie, this also goes with slide 2, which is the field maintenance, right? And I was really actually quite shocked when my kids a few years ago started playing, varsity sports, to find out, that the coaches are out there like spreading fertilizer and stuff. I mean, it just doesn't seem right? So I guess I agree with you in principle that, like, yeah, sure, if you use this field, like, that's where the money maybe should go back, unless we find out that for field maintenance is just, maybe maintaining the fields is expensive enough that we just allocate it across the whole county anyway, right? And I mean, I guess the bottom line is that the fields probably just need to be, the school board, need to maintain the fields everywhere.
And I
Doesn't
agree with
matter,
you, but I
right?
still don't think you're getting what I'm saying. One, like, say, okay, you've got $20,000 that you're gonna go out and you're gonna do whatever you need. Well, that field might not get used again for 3-4 more months, but another field may be getting used 2, 4, 6 times, 7 times, 8 times, 10 times more. Well, then you might not get your $10,000 again until the next season. So that team, that program, that coach, those kids, they're the ones out there shoveling, doing the dirt, doing
Yeah,
the
I
seeding,
guess,
doing all that.
no, I understand what you're saying.
With no money.
No, I understand what you're saying. I guess what I'm,
That's what's happening.
I understand that. I guess what I'm saying, I'm questioning whether or not that's the way it should be. That we have the coaches and the teams taking care of, doing,
I think you've always
field
had
maintenance.
that. I mean, yeah, it might not be.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this, I
Yeah, I think
guess.
this committee is going to give us a lot of insight to what's
Okay, so when are
really
we doing this
happening.
committee and when do we get some words back?
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of
I
times
would-
I'll ask for stuff and, and it just gets into the next important thing. And sometimes then I don't hear ever back. And I don't want that to happen.
The first meeting for the committee is the first week of May. We'd have to check with Dr. Whitaker beyond there.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a question. So with the monies that the district allocates, then it's split up between the schools depending on the sports and whatever. And when you run out of that money, then you have got to figure out how to fill in any holes. So if I'm in Blacksburg and Christiansburg, where there are a lot more businesses, a lot more support, versus Eastern Montgomery and Auburn, I want to make sure that they're not having to do without because they don't have the resources in their communities to be able to help plug those holes.
Sure, that's a great perspective. And we haven't seen that in practice occur. At the moment, all of the athletic department budgets have been sufficient to cover all of their needs and their expenses. There is an element of that there are fewer sports at those smaller schools. And even if they have the same number of sports, maybe there's not a JV, maybe there's not multiple middle schools. So oftentimes there's not as many expenses because there are fewer sports. But if it certainly came to that, we would need to look at that funding. But I've been doing this for a year now, I haven't seen or heard from the athletic directors that they've gotten to that point. Especially when we start to talk about, what I hear from them is that the maintenance piece, and this committee would really alleviate the concerns that they have about long-term maintenance. It's their primary concern.
So if that were the case, with all due respect, how did Charlesville or Eastern Montgomery's track get looking the way it has? And
We want to go there?
how come I've gotten emails saying we need dirt from Eastern Montgomery to make it playable? So and some schools, they may just be like, hey, we can't ask because it just is what it is. So, I think sometimes saying, well, yeah, it's done it up to this, I don't know that it is. I don't know that it is.
I think we're talking about two different things, though, aren't we? I think what Mr. Husband was talking about, if you go to the first slide, I mean, you got to pay coaches, you got to pay officials, transportation. That's the part that if I'm understanding correctly, he's saying.
Field maintenance, weren't we? I thought we were on field maintenance.
I was talking about those funds that are divided among the schools. And if they run out of funds, then the school has to fill in any holes for the coaches, the fields, the uniforms, everything else. I just wanted to make sure.
That's not, that's not, that's uniforms, that's transportation, that's officials, that's coaches.
Right.
That's not the field.
Right.
Right,
But I thought you had just said that you had checked and that
In terms of-
upkeep and things like that were being taken care of before
No.
the money was.
No,
just-
what he was saying was these funds, that the schools were not exceeding their budgets at this point for those types of items. But as far as maintenance, he was saying, yes, there are discrepancies there that need to be fixed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
think that
misunderstood you.
generally when we talk about advertising revenue, when we talk about ticket sales revenue, they've got some money to spend there, but definitely the larger concern I've heard from athletic directors is that long-term maintenance piece, whether it comes to,
Okay, gotcha.
large bills.
I want to make a comment. Since she was bringing up our track, I do just want to say that I actually ran track about 2 years ago, and it is in very, very poor condition. And I just really want that to be a priority, especially since I'm leaving. I know we have really great and upcoming runners, and sometimes they get overlooked because we are a smaller school. We are, a smaller division, but we do excel when we compete in things such as cross-country, track and field, and I just want to make sure that there are funds going towards that track and rebuilding it. And I was actually wondering, is there any time, is there a time when that is going to be done? Has that been put in place to upgrade our track?
It's moving forward already. We allocated someone to design it. I forget what you call it, architects, whatever you got to put together for the plans. We've already approved that. Once we get that, we'll look forward. We dedicated funds for, capital funds for that, so that is our intention to fix that track, because it does need repair. I would agree with you.
Thank you.
And it was bought up for several years and was ignored. I have no other way to say it.
And I think a lot of the concerns that the board members are raising are valid, and I can't go back in time or speak to what happened before, but I think we have to be cognizant of the capital costs for athletic facilities. They need maintenance. You know, that track didn't get in such disrepair at Eastern Montgomery High School in 1 year. That took time, and it wasn't maintained. And I'm not sure it's an asphalt track, you know, and I coached track a lifetime ago, and we didn't use asphalt 20 years ago. So I don't know if we cheaped on the installation. I don't want to cast aspersions, but I think moving forward, it's that capital expense is not going to come from this. That's something that we have to talk about regularly and bring things to the Board of Supervisors and try to get those things planned for, because like everything, when you maintain it properly, it's a lot cheaper than all of a sudden I got to do a total rehabilitation or replace.
And I'll just say, thank you for, doing this presentation tonight. I'm Mike Bond. I'm very eager to see what happens with the next steps out of that committee, right? Because there's a lot of important stuff on there that we've all talked about. I know we have our own stories. And I talked to a couple of coaches over at the high schools. I think Mark alluded to this, right? Like they've got to cut their own grass in some cases, right? They've got to line their fields. Like I just talked to a coach the other night. He had to learn how to drive a zero-turn lawnmower. He never driven one before. Otherwise, he wasn't going to get the grass cut in his field in time for his team to practice, right? So, I mean, that stuff is happening. Particularly with the outdoor sports, I'd imagine it's probably harder because you've got grass and turf and all these things that require maintenance, right? So anything we can do there to help, I think, is huge.
And I just want to say this because those are some big numbers up there. Sometimes folks saying we're supposed to be academically educating our students, but athletics and other extracurricular activities are so important. And if we're going to do it, then we need to be doing it the right way, and it needs to be equitable across this district, because that has not happened. Because there's a lot of students that I know would not have graduated had it not been their participation in athletics and other extracurricular activities, because that's what helps keep them going. And you have to maintain a certain grade average to be able to participate. So.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks.
appreciate it. I'm like, can't wait for the next report. I was like, Jamie, I expected
All right, next on the agenda is the 2023-2024 calendar revisions. Does anyone wish to make a motion regarding the 23-24 calendar revisions? In draft
I second.
B? Sorry, could you be more specific on your?
Got the 6 work days.
That's the one.
Can't get mine.
B.
Yeah, okay, here we go.
Draft B.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So I'm going to be voting no. I do understand, Dr. Bragan, your comments about getting students in that 180 school days, right? But this division, a couple years ago, made the determination that we were going to go by the hours, right? And because we did that, calendars was part of the reasons, part of the means how calendars are developed. To come now and not pull people back together and have some insight from across the district as to what we do to try to meet your goal of bringing us back to the 180, I don't think is fair at this point. I think, like was said tonight, there are people who make plans around the calendar because we said many years ago, instead of doing it one a year, we're going to do 2, so that there can be more planning, so that people know in advance what's going to be happening, and we don't have to beat our way through the calendar every single year. So I can't support just, we're gonna change it now without more discussion, more input.
Wasn't, one of the reasons, though, that we went to the hours was because that was a year that we had a lot of snow, and it was a way for us to be able to not have to make up so many days, because we missed a lot of days that year. Plus, we had some really hard rains, and we had to take off days for flooding, and I'm almost positive that was the case.
That was the case many years ago, that because the elementary schools, if I'm remembering right, had already had a few minutes tacked on to theirs, but the division-wide, secondary did not. So we ended up that year having to put 10 more minutes onto the school day to be able to make sure we met our requirements because of all the snow that we had. But last year, or not last year, but maybe it was the year before, anyway, we were asked, which way do we want to go? We want to do the hours, or do we want to do the days? And we voted to do the hours.
Board Chair, can I just comment?
Yeah, please.
And I can appreciate your resistance, Ms. Franklin, on changing anything. Of course, people would have plans, and I know they make them in advance. Where it came from, we actually would plan the calendar for 3 years for that reason. Get it done, get it etched in stone so people know, unless there was something that changed drastically that you had to adjust for. So I do recognize that. And in the proposal B, we tried to make sure we kept the end date and the beginning date of the school year the same, because people would have made those plans. So the last day of school is still that, May 24th or whatever it is, and the first day for students is that day in August as it was initially. There was a little bit of adjustment to the holiday during the Christmas time, the winter break. But I think, and again, I'm advocating for the children. I want to try to get as many days in as we can, because I don't think we have enough time. I do believe that in the core of who I am. And I think it's something we have to try to move towards, and maybe it takes time. I would concede that if this isn't the right time and you think there's a better time. I'm advocating for what I think is best and what we believe is a solid calendar that does right by the children, but is also fair to our staff as well. And just for a point of comparison, across Region 6, the average number of instructional days for the next school year is 179.14, right? The lowest number of days is 176. That's ours. The number of work days for teachers, we have more, only 2 districts have more than us. And then we talk about the time for the students. We have the second shortest day across all the schools in the division. So when we talk about we added time, I wasn't here. I don't know what that time looks like. I don't know what it was before. But across Region 6, except for Bodatat, if I pronounce that right, I'm learning. Bodatat, I'm sorry. We have the shortest day and the least amount of instructional days. I don't know how I could get in front of y'all and say that's what's best for kids. Now, I don't want to do what's best for kids that is somehow maligned or taking advantage of our adults and employees, because I don't think this is either. And I did have a conversation, and I don't want to put him on the spot, with Mr. Chilcote as the MCA president. He made some suggestions that would be more teacher-friendly as far as workdays being aligned to times that were more appropriate, and we made those changes in that revised B. Again, I think it's fair, and I think when we look at the perspective across the division, and this isn't just, hey, this crazy guy from New Jersey coming here with Jersey ideas. This is Region 6, Southwest Virginia. We have the lowest number of instructional days and the second shortest day across elementary, middle, and secondary. I just think we can do better.
I agree.
I certainly agree with everything you said. I want to make sure, because we put in teacher work days about a year or 2 ago, and we as a board, the majority of the board, said that we would like to keep those teacher work days. No PD, no meetings, so that the teachers could actually have that time to do what they need to do to prepare for the next semester or 9 weeks. And especially the elementary teachers. They have the least amount of planning time. And I just want to make sure that we do our best. I know there's going to be things that come up, but we do our best to keep that sacred planning time for them.
I think that's fair.
And that's the same as like the kickoffs at back to school. That was another thing that we decided, or I think we decided that instead of having all the different activities, let the teachers get back in their classroom. And I think the last couple of years that we were able to do that, and I think that was a big success too, because we used to utilize, and yeah, it might have been fun to come together, but teachers need that time. So, you know, the little things like that is what I think can make it more conducive to being able to get in their classrooms and work.
I really like the point about having more work days, teacher work days than most other school divisions. I think that's very important because we intentionally made that a priority for our teachers.
So, thanks for bringing that up, because we might look at all the districts that are in our region or even across the state, and one of the big things that I've been hearing is Radford's doing this to try to give more planning time. Pulaski's doing this. Everybody's trying to do something to make sure they're going to be attracting the teachers that they need and be able to retain them. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm not about doing what's best for students, but we had some plans in place to try to help with different areas, and that's why those decisions were made. And we just went through a whole thing about collective bargaining and having a voice at the table, and I don't think that happened here. So we need to start making sure when we're doing things, and I understand you're coming in saying, these are my set of eyes, this is what I see, but one of the things I've always said, Montgomery County is Montgomery County, and everybody should be looking at us, we shouldn't be looking at them, right? So I am not in any way trying to take anything away from our students, but it's making sure when we're doing things, we're really talking about why things are the way they are. Some things are just stupid and we need to change them, right? Other things, we need to talk about why and how we got to that point, and if we need to change them, how we go about doing that and making sure the voices are there to figure out how we do it.
I just add in, I agree with everything that you said, Dr. Bragan, in terms of the rationale behind why you want to make these changes. Totally agree with that, but I don't like the process of trying to do this kind of late in the game without giving the committee that we have, whose job it is to think through these things and get all the inputs. You shared some data with us, which I appreciate. I'm very data driven, so I like seeing all the stuff listed out and the comparisons with other counties and stuff. That's really helpful. One thing I'd like to also see would be their start and end dates, because I do feel like a lot of these counties are ones that I had looked at when I was looking at spring breaks. And I know a lot of these counties have week-long spring breaks in there, so their start and end dates have to be different than ours in order to get more instructional days than we have, right? So again, I'd like to look at this more comprehensively as opposed to just trying to make a change, which again, I don't disagree with. As I look at that calendar, it seems like who's losing out in it is our teachers. Now, I'd like to try to strike a better balance there. So,
and I think I'll chime in if anybody else wants to say something they can, but I agree with what Penny said. For me, this is an issue of process, and one of the things that I've been saying as long as I've been on the board is that we have to involve stakeholders and get their input on this type of thing, and I think there's no more fraught of a topic than calendar when it comes to that, because the teachers want something, and some of what they want, absolutely, we need to hear their input on that, because a lot of that input, I served on the calendar committee for many years, and I was schooled on a lot of things there, but there's also, people do self-interest things there too, and I think that students and parents also should have a say in that too. So I agree with Penny that, to me, this is both an issue of process, and I also think that I mean, I'm curious to see that if we polled students and teachers, you know, about ways to get more instructional time. I mean, one of the things that has bothered me since we did it was, what do we call it? The, you know, Bruin time, Blue Demon time, what do they call that?
Intervention?
Not, well, that's not what they call it. What's that?
IE time?
I guess. Because I think for, you know, I understand that, you know, when that was rolled out, we were told that it was going to be, you know, for kids that need intervention, remediation, whatever, they would have the time to do that. But for most of the kids who didn't, that it was going to be, why can't I, what's that?
Study hall?
No, we were not told that. I think if we were told that, I'm not sure we would have voted for it. So we were not told that. But the idea that, you know, that you're getting some enhancement or time or something like that, that, you know, all the teachers are going to, you know, do all these fun little electives and things like that. And
Yeah, I know at my school what it is basically you have to report back to your class on a specific day, like Monday you have to go to first block, Tuesday you have to go to second block, and before you can leave and go to a club, which are like extracurriculars, like you could go to student government or you can go to MAC, Beta, any of those, you have to check in with your teachers and they can hold you back and tell you, no, you have to complete these assignments that haven't been done before you can go do those extracurriculars.
yeah.
So that is.
So, but what it's turned into, and I don't, it'd be interesting to hear y'all's perspective, but what my kids tell me is it's basically study hall or goof off time or social time, or depending on the teacher that you have that block with, right? So, you know, to me, you know, rather than upset, you know, so many teachers in the district, and, you know, if we're really looking at adding, you know, instructional time back in, I think we should reassess that, you know, that block, because that's a block every day, you know?
That's, I mean, I don't disagree with you, that's something to be looked at, but that doesn't count for days or hours.
No, I understand that, but I think effectively, I mean, I think what Dr. and I, of course, trust Dr. Bragan and agree. I know that he wants to, you know, improve outcomes for our students. The question is, how do we do that? And I think what I'm saying and what I hear Penny saying is that, you know, we really should get more stakeholders involved in figuring that out. I mean, adding, you know, taking away 2 or 3 teacher work days, you know, is that necessarily going to increase, you know, is it going to have the effect that we want? It could have the opposite effect if we're just upsetting teachers. I don't know. Is adding 30 minutes or 40 minutes a day back into instructional time more likely to help? I would say probably. But you know what? It shouldn't be my decision either. It should be something that we hear from the professionals and from other stakeholders. So unfortunately, I'm going to be voting no on this. And I will say, you guys are never going to get rid of me. When I roll off of the school board, I'm going to come speak to you at public comment every time you're going to
How did
approve
we
a
know
calendar.
that?
What's that?
How did we know that? How did we know that?
Well, on this topic of, you know, and I'm not sure I could ever vote for a calendar where we put a teacher workday the week after the university spring breaks, when we've got our number 1 and number 3 or 4 employer in the area that are off for a whole week, and we can't even align one day. I mean, I just think that's
Yeah,
criminal.
but that's not the majority of our parents.
Right.
And also,
not
maybe
all
keep in
those
mind,
parents
when we
are off.
voted to add 4 extra teacher workdays, we didn't have a poll, we did not ask parents, we did not ask students.
Yeah.
We rolled it out to parents and said, find help 4 more days on already a calendar that I think we're very generous. Whether it's spring break, I mean, we've changed it around. It's a half a day on Wednesday, we're off Thursday, we're off Friday, we're off Monday, and now we have a teacher work day on Tuesday. That's 5 days. Now, it might not be a week, but we did work it to do that, correct? I mean, 4.5 days, excuse me, I think. Isn't that right? Wednesday and half, Thursday, Friday? No half day? Okay, so 4 days, excuse me, I'm wrong. Thursday, Friday, counting in my head. I work on Saturdays, so I sometimes think that. I put that in there. But, you know, those 4 days, we didn't ask parents, we didn't ask students, we rolled it out. And
I voted no.
I get it, but still, I'm just saying. So the calendar that I'm looking at, and I'm sure there's some changes, because I don't have the old calendar in front of me, so it's hard to kind of see, but I think it's just looking, oh, there it is. It didn't come up on mine.
It's okay.
But
So
the,
you can compare the two and see.
okay, but it basically is just taking 2 of the workdays that we added in, correct? Am I seeing that right?
Right, so in January, what we've done in January is we've added 2, instead of having 2 work days on Thursday and Friday after
Right.
the holiday break, teacher work days, they have been replaced now by 2 instruction days.
Right, and that's after, from December 21st to the 3rd of January. And it just won't be that extra 2 days right there at that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-day break, right? Am I seeing that right? Okay,
Correct.
just making sure.
But there are teacher work days in every month.
That's right, that's
just
what I was
like
gonna
there
say.
has been
Exactly,
before.
exactly. But the 2 work days we're losing are.
It's actually just 1 work day, because they do get 1 work day after the holiday.
Right, but I thought you,
There were 2, now they only get 1.
okay, but it's still 6 work days in all instead of 8, correct? Correct? Yes, basically. So, but those are, 2 of those days were put in to help from COVID to what I thought was maybe could be a temporary thing anyway, just to help everyone get back in the loop, on schedule, students caught up, teachers able to help plan for the things they needed for their students because they were struggling a little bit. That it might not be something that was permanent anyway. So that's why I'm okay with it. It's not the fact that I'm, so, oh, let's take it. But it's the fact that those were 4 extra days put in because they were needed at the time. But students need it now.
No, I believe some of those days were put in because they were needed for planning. One is when we went to ending the semester, trying to get it ended before winter break, that was a crunch for folks to try to get everything done and the second semester up and running when students came back. So as far your comments about not asking parents and this and that and whatever, there was a lot more discussion around what was happening around planning and teachers' time and whatever during that period than this being presented at the last meeting, and then now here we are talking about it. And it just does not feel right, because one of the concerns that both you and I have is parents not being off, and I was adamant, we can't do all this on Fridays because not everybody can get Fridays off. We need to move them around. But I'll be more than happy to look at a calendar that's gonna meet what you want when we get more input from the stakeholders. And that didn't happen here. It's just, we're gonna do this, wanna do this, and this is how we're gonna do it.
Board Chair Chabak, can I say something?
Sure.
I appreciate that, and the fact that we didn't have the process and the input, it makes total sense to me, so I totally understand the position. I'm advocating because it's what I think is best, but I do understand that, and if that's the process we go, I'm totally fine with that, and I accept it, and I respect it. I would ask Board Chair Chewbacca if the board is going to go with the original calendar that was approved, if that's what the direction is tonight, and that's what I think I'm hearing. And I don't know if this has to happen tonight, but on October 26th, there's a game for a local university. I forget what they're called, Virginia Tech, I think, the Hokies. And we have a full school that day, and typically I'm told that that's not the case. So if we could just amend that right now and make that October 26th an abbreviated day, if you're going to revert back to the other calendar, the one that's already approved, then we don't have to present it again, and this will be the calendar with just that day being an early release day, October 26th, it's a Thursday.
And that's something we've done.
That's the original calendar, so then we're done with it, we don't have to bring it up again. We approved that day for the early release day for the game.
Is that?
I'm surprised it got missed, to be honest.
yeah.
Because
They didn't pick the date when this calendar was made.
Thank you.
So would this be an additional?
It would be an early release day on the 26th.
An early release day on the 26th, okay. Gotcha.
if that's permissible, Board Chair.
That's fine by me, and I think you're right that that's probably the
I
way
can
we're headed. Do you want to
amend
amend your motion?
I can amend my motion. You want to go for it, and I'll just say yes or no?
But will that fix that issue?
Yes.
It won't if three of us vote no.
Let me amend it first, please.
Mr. Chair Buck, I also just wanted to
Yeah,
respond.
please go ahead, Macarius.
About the IE interactive time. You're saying that your children are saying it's like goof off time now. I will say.
I mean, not always. I mean, sometimes it's,
Yeah.
but it's not instructional time.
Yeah, so last year especially, it definitely was goof off and like everyone was going around the hallway. But Mr. Jones, he like enforced this new Excel sheet, which I don't know if this is happening across the county or if it's just in our high school. But even if we say hypothetically that is goof off time, I think that during that time period, the Gulf School students also drive to the high schools, as well as students taking classes at, like for example, if classes offered at Blacksburg High School, I know we have some sort of program that students are able to go to Blacksburg Middle School or Blacksburg High School, take that course, and then come back. So I think that's also the time. So I wouldn't recommend getting rid of it, but maybe just shortening it a little bit.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Woods is ready to read the amended.
All right, go ahead, Ms. Woods.
So the motion we have is to approve the calendar that was originally presented on 12/2/2022 with the addition of October 26th as an early release for pre-K through 12. Ms. Bond, does that work for you as well? Okay. We have a motion and a second.
Okay, any further discussion, Board?
So just to be clear, we're going back to the original calendar.
So voting
but
yes,
adding the
yeah,
early release. So we're
correct.
not approving the drafts that were
Correct.
presented.
Correct.
Correct.
And I'm with Penny that that doesn't mean that we can't change it or that we can't make, that there are definitely some changes that are there that I think are worthwhile, but for me, the process is a big part of it, so. All right, if there's no further discussion, Ms. Woods, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes,
5 in favor.
motion carries. All right. Thank you. Next on the agenda is unfinished business. Board, I don't think we have any items of unfinished business. New business, is there any items of new business? Are there any?
Oh, so let me get the names of them right. The ESSERS monies and SARS, whatever. Any money that we got during COVID and how we used it and how we may be filling positions or the positions are filled through attrition, eliminating, and if we eliminate it, how we're covering those. Can we get an update on what's going on with all that? And I know it's a lot.
The ESSER and CARES money.
Right, there we go.
Yes. And I thought some of that we're going to talk about in the next closed session.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And I had written down the adoption of curriculum, but it sounds like we don't really need that anymore, because I thought Ms. Wickham said that we are going to make that change to push out the ESO. So I won't bring that up then. Thank you for doing that, Ms. Wickham. Any other items of new business?
I don't have any new business, but I just wanted to say that unfortunately, I think this will be my last school board meeting. So I did want to thank all of the board members and Dr. Bregan for being so welcoming and always being so kind to me. I did also want to thank Ms. Wood and Ms. Drake for helping me through this process and for informing me about everything. I'd also like to thank Mr. Deibler for informing me about this opportunity, as well as Mr. Gerritsen and Mr. Husband for supporting me through this. And very important, I'd like to thank Mr. Wickham for lending me my charger so I can do my student report. I've learned a lot through this experience, and I'll forever be grateful. I just want to say thank you.
Well, we've been glad to have you.
Yeah.
Can you share with us what your
Great
plans
input.
are after graduation?
So I actually graduated early last December, and I'm doing New River Community College right now. I should be doing that until May 2024, graduate with 2 associates, and then transfer over to Virginia Tech. That's my plan.
Great,
Awesome.
great. That's
Well,
great.
don't be a stranger. Come by and say hello.
Will do, will do.
Harass us about something at a
Yes,
public
please,
comment.
I have a
because-
feeling you will, yeah.
Because I've really,
Yeah.
you- Oh, he'll do plenty of that, don't worry.
Yeah. This is fun.
It's been great having you on the board, and you've brought up a lot of, it's great when, when the student reps participate and give us input, and I've really appreciated the input from you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Any other, I guess we're in announcements and information. Any other announcements and information, board?
So, on the 5th, I had the honor of helping to escort students from all across the county to DC, to the African American History and Culture Museum. And it was an absolute wonderful trip, seeing the children understand the history, all the history of the United States and Virginia, and watching them eat some of the amazing food that was at that museum was also a treat. But I want to thank everyone who helped make that possible, and Ms. Woodsetzer really was the glue to help pull things all together. And we have been trying to do this since 2020, and everything shut down about 10 days before we were supposed to go. So the community support and everyone who helped make that possible, it was wonderful.
I'm sorry, I need to backtrack for just a second. Adding that half a day, does that hurt us on the hours? Are we still going to be in compliance?
We have plenty to spare on that one.
Thank you. Didn't make a mistake.
All right, if there's no other announcements, the upcoming school board meetings are on your agenda, on the agenda there. May 2nd is our next one. And now we need to go into closed session. Do I have a motion to enter into closed session as authorized by Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia to discuss 2 personnel matters and 1 legal matter?
So moved.
As long as we can be done by 9, we're close. As long as we can be done by 9. Second.
Do you have a bet
Sure we can
with
promise
Dr.
that.
Bryan or something?
No.
I have a motion and a second. Ms.
Come
Woods,
on,
would you
it's
please
a
call the
goal.
roll?
Let's make it
Ms.
happen.
Bond? Ms. Bond?
Oh,
Bond.
no, they changed the day.
Ms. Bond, ready to vote?
Voting.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ms. Franklin?
Ms. Franklin, we're voting.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson? Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
5 in favor.
Motion carries. We're now in closed session. Thank you. We'll take a short break.
Not with me tonight, I swear, I cannot concentrate.
Sorry, you were showing it to me and I was trying to listen. I didn't. No, it's fine, but. Yeah, you too.
Are we going over to the other room and then?
I think we're going to my office, right?
Are we finished?
Are we coming back? So is it late enough or you gotta go to work?
I don't know. I gotta make a phone call. We'll see.